Okay, welcome everybody to the February 16th Ortelius architecture meeting. I just do some heads up. I did out on Discord put the issue and the pull request for the architecture. I broke the architecture doc, so I broke it into two phases. The first phase is around the NFTs and Orango and the normalization, denormalization of the data. The phase two will be focused around the XRPL ledger specifically. What are we going to do when let's say a component name changes, how we record an update on the blockchain? Do we actually record it as an update, or do we do an add and delete on the blockchain level? So I have to figure that out, but please take a look at the initial phase one of that architecture and just add your comments to either inline in the PR with sections you need clarified, or just as general comments overall.
So where did you put it? Because I'm looking in the Discord channel. It's under
general. I sent it out to everybody.
Under general? Oh.
Yep. It was, you'll see it at everyone from yesterday afternoon.
Found it.
Or after. So these are the document was added to the logical application SBOM ledger repo. So kind of keep it all together. Yep. So that is the document.
Okay.
And it goes through our existing architecture, new architecture, and then kind of skirting around right now the OCI registry, but it's more of a abstraction layer that we just need to deal with down the road once that gets put into place more so. And then all the class definitions are in the Ortelius Commons Python module, and then we get into some examples of how things get transposed and moved around.
So I think it looks like you've decided Orango is what you want to use.
Yeah, I looked at that other one that Tony suggested that we look at, and the Orango is a little more robust because it'll handle not only act as a graph database, so you can do the crazy graph dependencies, but also it will take a JSON document and kind of convert it on the fly into graphing pieces. So this is all what you just clicked on is all of the classes. So we have like a domain class, a user class, and so on. You'll see, and in there are examples as well. So you'll actually see the example piece. So this will actually render in Swagger as well. And I think I got most of the objects out there that we need that I can think of. There may be a couple that were the one I didn't put in there yet is the SBOM one.
I was just going to ask, where's the SBOM one?
I have to look at I was hoping to pull the SBOM format from like the Cyclone definition so we don't have to redefine it.
Yeah.
So I have to look at that.
Okay.
So that's what we have going on that front. And I did go through, I was thinking there was one possibility that I was thinking of for how you retrieve the data. So let's say you go and pull an application version. Well, application version contains related component version information. And I was thinking of actually doing a service-to-service call. So you'd have the application service go call the component service, go have that secondary service retrieve the component information, and then we have the component version going out and retrieving, you know, license information, SBOM information. And when I looked at that architecture, because we have the Orango DB acting as a cache, I think that type of microservice architecture is just going to be overkill. So when an application version goes and asks, when that service goes and asks for an application version, it'll actually just go and talk to the Orango DB, and the Orango DB would actually have all that information pretty much in it. So it's a pretty simple process that we need to go through to move things in and out without having this huge microservice network that we have to build up. So take a look at this, please comment on it. And so Tracy, if you go click on the LAS bomb ledger next to the Ortelius.
Right there.
No, go to pull requests. So you see the top one is the architecture doc. So if you want to make comments on it.
Okie doke.
So that's what we have going on that front. And then the other pull request out there is something that Utkarsh and Joseph have been working on. So Utkarsh, I'm going to turn it over to you, and if you can give us a demo of what you've written for the SBOM normalization, denormalization.
Okay, sure. Is the screen visible to all?
Yeah, looks great.
Okay. Okay, so first of all, let me walk you through what are methods that are there to be consumed. So first of all, I have this normalize method. So before I thought like normalization means to just pick like particular objects, right? So what I was doing, I was just picking some details, some packaging details, and I was naming that as a again, I was storing that as a against these details. Similarly, I was storing these licenses as a CID, and I was returning as a value for licenses. But I think as per the latest communication that we had on Discord, looks like you need this method. So what this method does, this will take a dictionary, and this will return you this object. So right now what I'll do, I'll just try to expand this.
Yeah, if you could throw it into JSON lint or something.
Yeah, I'm going to do that. And before that, let me also pull up like what was the input JSON that I used for this. Okay, this was just simple JSON file. I have the like complex example as well, but I'll go to that in a while. Okay, so here, as you can see, we have these nested objects inside these hashes. Okay, so what this method does, this will nestedly look for nested objects, and if it finds any dictionary or any list, so it will again go iterate over, and first of all, it will translate the, it is basically the DFS, okay, depth first search. So it will iterate to the depth, and then from the depth itself, it will translate and interpolate all the CIDs to the first level key value pairs. So, okay. This is the resultant of that. And what I'll do now, I'll just try to extract these individual values and try to populate that.
It's thinking about it.
Okay. Here we go.
Okay, cool.
That's a simple one. So yeah, so the CLI, so the method that we have written to fetch data from the CIDs, right? That is returning us the string. So string is basically very, it is easy for us. We can convert any time to any object, right? So that is why I've kept that as a string, rather than hardcoding to it to any other data types.
Yeah, that will work perfect for being able to take that string and load it into a Rango.
Great. Going to expand this license on, because we can see this license has one element, and inside this one element again we have this key value pair, wherein we can see one object inside this, right?
Think you missed a cut and paste.
Oh, okay. Okay, here again we have this CID, right? So if we just remove this and keep this on, we can see we have this license key, which is there in line number 15. And inside that we have this array of elements. That is why we have this array of this CID. If we again extrapolate this CID, we'll be able to find this license. We'll be able to find this object where we have this name BSD3 plus.
Is that how IPFS stores? So does it like stored with that long string like that?
Yeah, it's a IPFS is a contents. It's based on content hashes and not file names.
Okay, so that's how that's basically technically, funny way in a sort of way. It's file name just uses this random strings to denote the data that it's storing. Or
they're actually not random strings. They are a SHA of the data itself.
Oh, okay.
So they're immutable. So if you went and changed, put a space in there,
You would mess it up. Would you mess it up?
You get a different SHA because of that.
So it's the actual data, almost like it's like when you base 64 encode a password, it's like being like compressed like that in a way.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And that's why it's important to normalize this. And normalize it means break each object into its smallest pieces. So like here, license name BSD3 clause. The BSD3 clause will be used in multiple SBOMs. So what ends up happening is we only store that once in the IPFS storage.
Makes sense.
And
So
we
you don't have
reference
multiple of those,
right? Multiple times.
Okay, so you have it once, but reference multiple. Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. So is that actually a piece of data that IPFS is storing with that information, right? But just once, right? Using that long string. Right.
And the reason we want to do this is go through all this effort is because the SBOM data and all of our data is, I would say, over 95% redundant. There's very little pieces that are changing as we go through and generate new versions of components and applications and stuff.
interesting.
Okay, so this is how this will be expanded to the actual
Yep.
JSON object.
Oh,
We
there
also
it's
have a
expanded.
reverse
Okay.
method written. So we don't have to, like manually go and expand all these CIDs. We already have this method written. So this it says decode to CIDs like this. Memorize, convert, detect. Okay. Okay. So this is the main method that where you can give the first level CIDs JSON contract here, and this will return with the values. And in case if you have just CID, okay, and you want to expand that CID, this is the method that you can use, convert CID to object.
So what's the difference between the two?
Okay, so this is taking the dictionary. The dictionary, yeah, you will have a key and value can be anything, right?
Right.
And if the value is CID, that will this method will expand. Basically, this method is using this method, I guess, as a helper. Okay.
Got it.
So just changing the name. So basically, it will be helper method that it will be using. Okay. Apart from that, okay, regarding the sorting part, right? So already tried with pretty complex JSONs. So here you can see we have this license, and the other key is ABC, where we have this value XYZ. Beside this,
Right. So, Sasha, one of the things that'll affect the hash that you get is the actual order of the data. So even if we have a JSON string that contains the same data, but the keys are in like different orders, you'll actually generate a different hash.
Oh, shucks. So like
So-
a typo, would that mean, so let's say you fix a typo, would that change the,
Yeah, if you fix a
Hash.
typo, that's a whole new hash.
It's a
So
whole
one
new
of the
hash.
things that we
Okay.
had to deal with is making sure that we sort the keys of the dictionary and stuff accordingly before we save it, because that way we make sure we don't get duplicate NFTs out on IPFS, just because the ordering of the keys is slightly different.
Jeepers.
So Utkarsh had to write a special sort mechanism.
Thank goodness Utkarsh can do that, because I wouldn't have a clue.
So basically, like everything was being taken care of by that implicit method. But the only thing that I did here explicit is if you have any list of primitive objects like a string or integer, so we have to sort that as well, right? Because if the ordering differs in two objects, that will give us two different hashes.
Right.
So let me run this and show you. Let me print out the session with fail and use. So let's move on.
And the other thing we have to watch out for that is spaces and semicolons, commas, quotes, those type of things will make a difference in the SHA that we generate as well. So we want to get the data as clean as possible before we store it. And this looks pretty good. This looks good.
Yeah, all the indentation and what you call all the spacing, right? That is being taken care of by this attribute.
Right.
Oh, so that cleans it up.
So here is the sorted dictionary that we are generating for minifying our
Nice.
JSON. Okay.
Awesome.
This will also take care of any other primitive objects, even double or string. In case we have like timestamp or something, right? In future, if you have timestamp or something, that will be taken care of.
Amazing, man, that you wrote this. Yeah.
That
Of
is
course you
just a DFS, nothing much.
Should make a course or do it.
So here I'm giving license as 3 values. That should be started with yeah, it is giving 1, 4.
Right.
Yeah,
So it's sorted numerically correctly.
Yeah. So yeah, apart from that, I think you also require. Okay, so I need to know like what is the format of the SBOM, right? Because right now I'm assuming the SBOM would be a dictionary. Do we need to support both dictionary or list? I can do that as well.
It will be, I'd have to look at the Cyclone DX format, but I believe it is, I can't remember if the root is a list or if the root is a dictionary. I just, let me see if I can find one. I can tell you.
Mhm. Okay, so why some tweak would be needed? Because see, this is list, right? And as a result, we are like expecting a dictionary. So basically, there would be some wrapper method that would create the CIDs for these objects, and then just wrap this up in a particular dictionary and return. Just a little work, not much work is needed.
Yeah, so in the example, if you go back to that pull request I have out there, or that basically the JSON file that is in that.
For that
So,
issue.
Yeah, go to the issue, go to the pull request, open up the add architect doc, and then go to the files. And go all the way down to the bottom. It'll be, there's a bunch of files that I just cleaned up. So that's where we go to, and view that one. Yeah, so just go into view mode. Yeah. So if you scroll down towards the bottom,
This one.
keep going. Right here. This is the denormalize. So let me kind of explain the data. So for example, we have multiple objects that we would be storing, and they would not necessarily be all that it won't be necessarily a list. So for example, we would have an object on IPFS for the domain name global. And then we'd have another object for the admin user, and that admin user would then reference the IPFS SID for the domain global. So we will be storing the objects individually, so it'll be a dictionary to start with. The way this was generated was through pulling out the example data from the Swagger, basically, in the class definition of the Python modules. So that's how come it's a list, because it's all the objects in one kind of JSON file. But for what you're working with, it'll be just a dictionary of a high level object that we'll start with.
So why I thought like this is not the final contract, because even if you give this to someone, right, a UI or something, how would they know like this object is related to domain? They have to populate some cards or some navigations.
Right.
So it will be
So
harder for them.
yeah. So what we would have is, and I don't know if we have it. Scroll down a little bit. I don't know if we have a list of users.
Yeah, I think
We have users for groups. So this does not have the contract for like a list of users. I don't think. Environment. Yeah, I'd have to look at, I don't think I have in there like a list of users. You have users for groups and stuff like that. But basically what would happen is, like a list of users would return an array of user objects, basically, for the UI to then list on the screen. So, but what would happen is, when we would go to the NFT side, we would go and, if you scroll up a little bit, I'll kind of show you what the thought is. Okay, so in the caching part there, we would actually load into the Rango DB some basic information that we could do searches on. So basically it's like the name and the domain name is the information that we'd want to search on. So say, give me all the users in the global domain, for example, and we can do that search in the Rango DB. And if we find that the actual object itself that we're looking for, in this case, the admin in the global domain doesn't exist, then we go over to the IPFS and retrieve it. And if you scroll down a little bit, we would go retrieve the actual expanded or the denormalized object out of IPFS, and then update the Rango DB with that new data. So what it does is allows us to kind of pull that information. So we have built in to the Rango a set of search keys that will be able to search. They'll give me a list, and then from that list, the microservice would iterate through the list and see, based on cached equals false, if the cached key there exists or not. If it doesn't, if the cached exists, then I know I have to go pull it from IPFS and expand it out. So this is the kind of how we populate the full data into the Rango DB on the fly. So the next time somebody comes through and says, give me a list of all the users in the global domain, all that would be already expanded out in the Rango DB, and then we just return that. We don't have to go over to IPFS.
In that case, even if I return you the list of CIDs, that will do good, right?
Yeah, it'll be, what we would need is for us to do the searching is, and this will probably either work off of the ledger as we go through and start up a new, let's say we just start up from scratch, and we need to reload all the information from the blockchain. We would iterate through all the entries in the blockchain that happened, and we would add that information into the Rango DB. So the blockchain will have some basic information in it, mainly the SID, and we could attach some basic meta information to it, like the name and the domain name. That will allow us to build on startup the search cache that we can then use to start querying. And once we start up and have everything going, we have that search cache, and I can say, give me all the users for the global domain. We would query their Rango DB, and we'd recognize as we loop through the objects that were returned that none of these objects have been pulled from IPFS. And at that point, as we iterate through that list, we go and pull them and add them into the Arango DB as full objects. Does that help clarify the process?
Yep.
And that would happen for all the objects. So not just like users, but that same thing would happen for all the domains, all the application versions, all the component versions, all the licenses, all that information ends up in the initial cache that we build off of the blockchain.
Okay.
And we can actually build it. We could actually build it, like you said, without implementing blockchain to start with. We just need to know the list of SIDs that are out there that we need to manage. Now, one of the things, if you scroll up, keep going up. Okay, yeah, right. Go down a little bit. Storing an NFT. So one of the things that we need to do is we need to store the type of the object as part of the JSON for the SID. So because that's the only way we could distinguish all the SIDs. We have this list of SIDs that we know that we stored on NFT storage, but we need to know what they actually are so we can transpose them into the right objects. So that's where we have to store the type as part of the JSON payload.
Okay, so right now I'm not storing list of CIDs into a CIDs. Do we need to consider that?
Yeah, well, and I don't know if the NFT storage has a way for us to list all the SIDs underneath our account, or how that is set up.
No, what I'm asking, we also meant like we need to specify the type, right? JSON or list, you said.
We need to know the type of the object, whether it's a domain object, it's a user object, an application object.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Not whether it's a list or a dictionary.
Okay, makes sense. Okay, so existing method will do good. I've already tested.
It's just
test it once and add this contract to the test case.
Yeah, so this test case here is if you can adjust to deal with the a list of objects, what that allows us to do is make sure that the nesting and the cross-referencing between the normalized and denormalized are end up being the same thing.
Yeah. I was thinking to improve the test cases. So what I'll do, I'll just take one contract and just try to translate that to CIDs and then reverse translate that and just validate with the same contract that I mentioned earlier.
Yeah. So if you take that, the domain and user objects that are there, take those first two. So the domain object, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at that, you can see that in the domain right there, it matches up with that one there. Now, one of the things that you can kind of throw out is the key. The key is really used for the Arango, so that really isn't needed in the test data.
Just in a test data, or we don't need to store this as an NFT as well?
It won't. If you go back to the document, scroll up a little bit, keep going up. I'll show you where it there. So on the NFT side, you have your SID, and then you have your type and name, for example. Now, when that gets transposed so the Arango DB can use it, we kind of flip it around where we have the key is part of the JSON payload. And then we have the type and the name. So it's slightly slightly transposed because of the way NFT refers to things and the way Arango stores things.
Yeah, it's a bidirectional transformation.
Yeah.
So if we have like data from Arango, we can anyway query this CID, right?
Yeah. And then the nice thing is, because in Arango, underscore key is a string, we can reference that directly to the IPFS SID. So we can make these complex graph dependencies just through all of the basically the SIDs. So it allows us to go in, and when we need to go find something from that hasn't been fully rendered, so it's in the search cache, but we don't have the full object yet, we can just look at the key and go over to IPFS and pull it back. So it makes the fetching of data from the IPFS side really simple.
Correct. I'll just make a note for this as well. This is also not implemented as of now. We'll add that as well.
Yeah, so as you're going from an object to an IPFS, you ignore the key in the JSON payload. And if you're going, because the end result is you get the key back from IPFS, and when you store it. And if you're going from IPFS back to the JSON object, you need to have the key, the underscore key, as part of the JSON payload.
Correct. Okay.
And the end result should be between the two objects. If you calculate the hash, they should be identical.
Yeah, that is happening right.
Yeah,
right
it's
now.
going to happen. It's going to happen by default.
But just reiterating one thing. So for this JSON, the final result will be something like this, right? CID1 and CID2.
It'll be.
Or you also want some keys for that.
It'll be CID1 and CID2. Exactly.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And within CID2, you'll be referencing CID1 as you expand it out because of the domain.
Correct. Yes, they should be same.
Yeah, because that and line 12 through 15 are the same. You'll have CID2 referencing CID.
Okay. Yeah, so that was it. That was it from my end.
Cool. It looks awesome. Great job.
Thanks.
And what we'll need to do is, once you get happy with it, I created a Ortelius Commons repo that has the Commons Python module in there. It may not be bubbled up to the top. Just do a search on Commons or Common. There it is.
Okay, we have comments.
So this, if you look at main, oh, I'm sorry, Ortelius underscore common. That's the. So this has all the class definitions in it. And then at the bottom, you'll see there's a couple reusable functions. There's one like for user validation. Yeah, here comes some.
One is line voting, one is line.
Yeah, those you can replace with yours. I just was stubbing out some stuff just for to help me visualize. Like validate user is one of the reusable ones. So like hashdict, renest, those you can replace with your stuff.
Mhm. There are like quite a few methods that I've written. So one of them is to detect the CIDs. So for that, I have like researched like how many types of these hashes can be generated. So based on that, actually there are just 3 types of hashes that can be generated, starting from BA, I think from CA,
Cool.
there's a third type. So I've added all those things and I've added a method to detect
Awesome.
if the particular string is CID or not.
Yep. Perfect.
Okay, I'll add those.
Yeah, just work through that last test case with that the list of the domain and user.
Will do.
And then from there, we'll be able to start building up the a microservice to start working with.
There was something, there is one issue where I need some information to work on that. So it should be here.
Oh, and while you're looking at that, we did get our money moved over under the GitHub sponsorship. So I need to figure out the next step of how you need to set up your account, and we'll start paying these out here pretty quick.
So is there a way, so we are following that GitHub sponsorship, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And somehow I'll figure out the details on what we need to do. I think it's somewhere underneath your profile that you set up your bank account stuff.
Like I've almost done, so it just I went to attach my banking details.
Cool.
So I was talking about this story. So here I think this is all component details. So here also I need the JSON contract of the component.
Yes. And that will be that should be in that and that commons module should be the class which will give you the contract.
Okay. Yeah. That's it.
And we may or may not need to load everything from the Postgres database. We'll have to see what we need to do on that front. It may be easier just to handle a JSON, the JSON version, and not worry about pulling it from Postgres at this point. We could just start, like a clean microservice that will add a brand new component to the database, because we have our CLI that we can modify to we just pointed to a different endpoint, and then we just have this ends up being an endpoint here that will do take the component contract and push it over into NFT. So I'll go through and modify. I'll make sure that because I wrote these such a long time ago, that I'll make sure that they're reflect where we currently stand.
Yeah, in the starting, I was feeling why we are doing this, right? Because we already have that.
Yeah, exactly. And if what you've written on the Python module side can be reused for any object, then we're really far along with being able to throw any type of object at it.
Hmm. So one thing that I'm concerned is the time that is being taken to save one object to NFT. So that I think we need to look.
Does it take a long time for it to actually save to an NFT?
Okay, well,
Is it like
so there
minutes
was
or?
this, okay, there was this issue, right, where
Yeah.
I populated all these licenses and created the NFTs.
Yeah.
So it had close to
A couple hundred licenses in there, right?
couple hundred, right? But it took close to 1 hour. Okay,
Okay.
so maybe if I'm using the testnet, right? That is a developer network. Maybe in
Right.
the production or something blockchain network that will be much faster. I'm not sure about that. But yeah, if we can check with the Brian or someone from the example itself.
Yeah, the other way we could do it is the initial thought would be to implement as a pull through cache. So on the insert or update side, you would actually go ahead and insert the new data into IPFS and then just turn around and re-retrieve it into the cache. And that would give us kind of that route. Now, the other way we could change it would be the reverse. So we actually, when we go to do an update, if we're able to calculate what the SIDs are going to be ahead of time, we could actually do a push through cache. So a new update would actually update the Arango database first, and then because we know how IPFS is going to calculate the SID, we can pre-predict what the SID is going to be, and we can actually populate the Arango cache with the objects, and then as a background process, actually start pushing things over into IPFS, kind of like in the background. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that works fine. But even in that case, the first time setup, first time, whoever will onboard this into the pipeline, that will take time.
Yeah. Well, what will happen is because of the cache, they wouldn't notice the problem because Arango would get updated first, and if they came back and said, "Give me the object I just added to it," it would actually hit the cache and return back to them the data, even though IPFS is in the background updating.
Okay, you mean to say something sort of asynchronous?
Yeah, exactly. It's a IPFS would be asynchronously updated.
Okay, we need to see. So, because if we are implementing this in Backstage, let's say, okay, so it should not be a case where Backstage is taking less time and it is waiting just because somebody has added Ortelius plugin that, right?
Right. It should not wait.
Yeah.
And that's why it's a push through cache instead of pull through cache. So you push it into the cache and then you push it to persistent storage versus the pull through cache, which pushes it to persistent storage and then updates the cache with the new data.
Mhm. Okay. I think we need one issue for that then, right? To
Yeah, well,
find out
once
what the CID would be.
yeah, I'll update the architecture document to reflect that we need to do a push through, and that we also need to make sure that we're calculating the SIDs accurately.
So that was
Does that help?
Yep.
Okay. Anything else? Awesome job, Utkarsh. Just a couple other updates. Arv and I have been working on the DevOps milestone, and we've been able to update like the health check and add in some of the vulnerability scanning for Trivy. So all the repos are going to go, if you go to the security tab on the repos, we're getting that information updated there as well. It's interesting because yesterday we actually had an A on our scoring, and somebody found a vulnerability in one of the curl, and our grade went down to a C now. So I think I'm looking at it, but I think most of it is just a rebuild that we need to do. So I'm taking a look at that, but we definitely have come a long ways as part of that. One of the things I did figure out is we actually have to use some of the chain guard images that are based on Wolfie, which has 0 vulnerabilities, and Alpine. Those are the two, like Alpine Slim is what we need to base upon. So that's getting cleaned up. I think we may need to kind of figure out how we can like rebuild automatically if a vulnerability is found, because that's seems to be most of the things are just fixed by just rebuilding and pulling in the latest packages and fixes. And then Sasha's been working on standing up Ortelius on the client cluster. With these changes that we've made, we found a couple little few things, but we'll get that sorted out, and it's looking good.
So the work that Sasha is doing is that in the DevOps
No,
milestone?
I
Where is
don't know
that?
if we have an issue for it.
Well, that doesn't make sense. We should have an issue for it.
Sasha, you got to create issues for what you find.
Yes.
You're slacking there.
Well, you're losing out on your points, man.
You're losing out on your pull requests and your points.
Yes.
Oh, sorry guys.
And
I
add
made
it to-
issues on the repo.
And
Yeah,
add
but
it to and add it to the DevOps milestone.
Add it to the DevOps milestone. Okay, wait. Show me
Yeah.
how
So when
to
you
do
create
it.
an issue, Tracy, go into an issue. Doesn't matter which one.
I'm going there to Ortelius.
See the milestone over here? You can just click this little button when you create your issue and add it to the DevOps one.
Ah,
Just trying to keep our projects better organized.
And
And right now we
need to-
just have these 3 milestones.
where's the issue? So where do I create the issue though? Is it actually, I created my issues under my actual repo.
right, so
That's
create
not
them in
right.
the Ortelius repo.
Can I move them there?
Yeah.
So I can go
Well,
to my repo. Can I
You
go
could
to
try moving them across organizations.
Can you? No,
Yes.
it's in the Ortelius organization. I'm using the repo in Ortelius organization, but I just created the issue in the dev-env-setup.
Yeah. So click on the issue, and then over on the right hand side, Tracy, click on one of the issues since you're sharing screen. You'll be able to go down on the right hand side. It says transfer issue right above delete issue. And you can transfer them over to the Ortelius repo, and then select the milestone.
And can you do a multi-move, or is it just 1 by 1? Do you know?
It's 1 by 1.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
No, it's okay. I was just asking if you can do a bulk move.
That'd be nice.
Yeah, wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, because I have had to, I ran into that when I was playing with some of the stuff, trying to clean some of
Okay,
the stuff
so
up.
oh, I see there's no project set here. So what do I click there and then I choose recent? It says Ortelius Galaxy Battle. Oh no.
No,
Organize-
leave project empty and go to milestone.
Oh, only milestone. Okay. Okay.
Yep.
Nothing to show. What do I type in there? Ortelius, will it come up?
You know,
Oh, there.
let's have Sasha share his screen real quick.
Sorry, guys. No, Zoom, you stupid. You won't let me move it to my bigger screen. It like blocks me from moving screens. Unbelievable. It's my screen. Yeah.
Okay. So
Is it
scroll
sharing?
down
Which one is sharing?
and
Can you see anything?
yeah, we
Yeah.
can see we see
Okay.
your issue.
See this milestone. So I click here, right?
You need to move it first.
Oh,
So go down to transfer.
oh there it is. Jeez. Choose a repo.
And you want
Ah.
Ortelius. Yep.
Cool.
Transfer it. And now go to labels or milestones and
Aha.
DevOps.
Just learned
And then you can
something
assign
about
yourself
GitHub.
to it also. It unassigned you.
Oh, that's okay. I'll just, okay, thanks. I'll go and fix that.
And then while you're there, if you could go to the Ortelius, you're there. Click on issues. I guess you're in issues.
Yeah. What do you
Mhm.
want to see?
I want to see the milestone list.
Oh,
This
click
one,
on
yeah.
this.
There you go. Click there, right. And then go into DevOps.
This is really cool in GitHub. I haven't used this before.
So we have these, there's 3 in here that relate to Argo. And they've been out there for a while. Just go to click on one of those that say create Argo CD application set. Sasha,
This
all
one.
you can see it was opened in 2021.
Whoa.
All 3 of
Yeah.
those are old. And I'm wondering if we want to just close them and not pursue Argo, or I can put an Argo, take them out of DevOps for now, give it an Argo label. And so it's out there in case somebody wants to do something with Argo. But I just want to get the team's feedback, and if we want to move, if moving to Argo is necessary at this point.
Yeah, you
Well-
see, I just wanted to raise something. Yeah, because like it would be cool. That's why I kind of created this local environment so you can do something like that locally before deploying it into the actual Ortelius, because it's quite hard to work on something if you can't get context, right?
Yep.
So I guess Brad is the only one who's got context here. So none of us, well, for me, I don't know what's really going on there, right? And
Yeah, I
think
agree. That's the kind of
that's the hard
dilemma.
part.
It's
Yeah.
Argo's installed and running over in our Azure cluster, and it's semi-configured, but I just don't know what's needed to finish it up so things
Yeah.
happen automatically.
So Steve, do we have like all microservices and charts ready?
Yes.
Okay. So
Why don't
that
I do
is
this?
something Brad was waiting for. So when Brad was working on the microservices are not there. And that is why he was not able to bring that up. there.
Yeah. So we actually have a charts repository that gets updated anytime we build one of the microservices or part of the monolith.
Does Argo CD for Ortelius have a Helm chart?
There is a repository out there that Brad created around Argo. I think it's the Ortelius Kubernetes repository that there's a bunch of stuff for like installing Argo, installing Backstage. He basically has a bunch of stuff to do if we lost our cluster and then we needed to rebuild it. It has all those details in it.
Okay, that would be cool to have in your local, right? Then you can understand how Ortelius is architecturally put together in the cloud. I don't know, for me, it would help me a lot. And then I feel like it would be more tangible for me. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where
That's why I kind of started building this thing, right? So I
Yep.
can understand Ortelius better and understand what's going on architecturally better.
Yep. And I think your method is easier than trying to introduce Argo.
What method is it? What, doing it on the local?
Yeah, doing your Terraform locally.
And then like working with it there and seeing if it's of any value, right? Well, it sounds
Right.
like it's got value. Yeah, yeah. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah. Because now it's a bit stuck, right? Because we don't know what, if you change something there or how it affects the rest of the components that are running in Azure, right? Because this is an affect Azure, those things, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. What we could do is deploy a development environment in Azure, and we could use that.
Yeah, and that's part of the stuff that Argo is
Separate from the
supposed.
production, right? We could have a non-prod for Ortelius developers in Azure.
Right.
'Cause who pays for it? Is it
The
part of
Linux
the
Foundation.
Linux Foundation, and that's exactly
So-
what they pay for that stuff for.
Yeah, so we could have a development environment. We could take this local environment built. We'd rather have that in Azure, and then we could work in Azure and stuff around in there and fix things and play with things and break things without breaking production. And then once it's gone through the right proper process of yourselves, you know, like approving the migration to the next stage, then you can just deploy it like that, because Argo is amazing for that, of course.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean,
And
Argo makes
it
it so
looks
easy.
like Brad's been doing some stuff with Argo and backstage. So it does look like Argo is running in some fashion.
Because that's how I take stuff of my current client from non-prod to pre-prod to production. I just use Argo and I just make another values file. And then I just
Right.
say this one, you know, and then it pulls, it's a centralized image, it pulls for all environments, but Argo will then deploy per environment, right? That's where Argo is so powerful. So you
Right.
could have multiple Orteliuses all running the same thing, right? In production in Azure.
Yep.
That's where Argo would be amazing.
And
And
we
you
can
can
even
just-
just have not even worry about a production version of Ortelius at this time, just a single version that is like the latest development stuff. And if people want to just, you know, work with that, that's good too.
Yeah.
So I think this
Yeah.
is more about setting up a developer environment. Yeah, that code spaces is sort of in the same line of discussion. Than our actual DevOps process, even though I know that the deployment part would be related to Argo. So I'll just leave it out there for now. We are trying to get this stuff closed by the 1st of March, since we don't have it hanging around. If it's still, you know, out there by the next time we meet, which will be just in 2 weeks, we'll decide what we want to do with it then. But we should either move it to a different milestone and include it with code spaces, for example.
Yeah, so code spaces works great for, like, say, an individual coming to your repo. You literally just click on that and they can do their work in the browser inside a
Right.
container with VS Code, right? So that's
Yeah.
perfect for that.
Yeah.
Whereas Argo is great for taking what, well, like how we do it is we have a poly repo for the application microservice, and then another poly repo just for the Helm chart, and they're married together. So there's a one Helm chart per microservice. That's how we've been told to do it. Each microservice has its own Helm chart.
Right.
Its configuration abstracted, and then
Right.
I just create multiple value files depending on what other environments it needs to go through, and then it just replicates it through.
Right.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, all of this, we should be doing it through Ortelius.
Yeah, exactly. It'd be amazing if we could have that type of, you know, like you have a non-prod, like a dev in non-prod, and then a test in non-prod.
And Ortelius has
yeah.
those environments, and we should be connecting it to call Argo to push those Helm charts across, as you just described.
Yeah, exactly. It would be amazing.
Yes, we just need to
And it's okay to deploy that in Azure with under the CNCF. Is it all covered expense wise? Oh wow, cheapest.
So what we would need,
cool.
there's a couple. First thing we need to do is get it deploying, and then the second thing we need to do is record what got deployed where. So this application version got deployed to this the Argo prod environment or the Argo dev environment.
We could use Ortelius for that.
Yes, we are actually recording
It's a perfect demo.
everything that's being built.
Yeah.
So when we do a build, we actually record the component version and the SBOM and all that stuff. So that's all out there. We just need to record which environment the versions went to.
And it's super easy to control because we could use Terraform to do that, and we could use Atlantis to control the PRs. Atlantis would block the PR and wait for people like Steve or Tracy or Arvind or Utkarsh or myself to have a 2-eyes process on that before it gets deployed into Azure.
Yep.
You could automate that whole thing. Yeah. That's how, like that GitOps model, right? So the repo is the boundary to the cloud.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think we're probably like 80-90% there. We just have to finish it off.
We have to decide if this is a priority or do we want to push the, I mean, let's go to the, if you could go to the other milestone, go back and let's go to the XRPL milestone, that one. Now, I know, Steve, you have stuff that you have yet to add to this. This is not a complete list, right?
Correct.
And how much do you think of this list is out there that's done? No, let me rephrase it. How much of the list have you not added? You got 12 tickets. Do we have another 12 or do we have another 24?
Probably another 12. It could be up to 24, depending on, so if you look at the architecture diagram document, we have about a dozen, maybe a little more, maybe 18 microservices that we need to write. So there would be an issue for each microservice.
Okay.
And then we have the front end side, and the front end side is broken into basically component list, application list, component detail, application detail are the 4 main screens. And then we have environments, users, there's maybe 8 screens we need to do on the front end side.
Yes, it's only you and Utkarsh working on it basically at the moment, right?
And Joseph just couldn't.
Oh yes, and Joseph.
And then Nikta from Ukraine is working on the UI design.
Okay.
He's researching some layouts that we could possibly use.
Yeah, that's why I've been researching on the DevOps side to help developers like yourselves make it easier, right? I'm trying to find ways to make it kind of, more intuitive or faster.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and update that DevOps milestone with what we would need to do to get the process fully automated. Arvind, are you still interested in still working on some of that DevOps stuff? I know that's what you're doing in your internship. So
yeah, he's doing Azure.
Yeah.
Okay.
I am interested.
All right. So why don't we, I'll get together with Steve and I'll update that DevOps. We may extend this out to March 15th. It sounds like it's potentially that we have different people working on the ledger than we have DevOps. So I think that we can do that. So I'll extend the milestone out to the 15th and let's get some additional ones opened to clarify what we really need to do, which means that we might close the existing Argo ones and open ones that make sense.
That makes sense.
That's good. Does I have to start learning Argo CD?
Good. This will be a good place for you to do that. And I feel like what we need to do is we need to have Ortelius, drinking its own champagne, and we're not doing that.
Yeah.
So I think, Arvind, one of the first things I would have you work on would be to set up a Ortelius in Ortelius. Which means though that we need an Ortelius Azure environment at the Linux Foundation, because currently we're not hosting it anywhere.
Yeah, we are. That's what I'm saying. It's running in Azure.
It's running in Azure, but we don't have it published to anybody. I've taken it off the website and everything else.
Yes, that part is true, but we do have containers running in Azure for all of the pieces for Ortelius, all the microservices
Okay.
and the monolith. So that's all out there running.
Okay, so that's what we'll work on, and maybe Arvin and I can work on that DevOps stuff as well. I can help him with it.
Yes, it really is getting on Brad's calendar to find out what's where and understand what we need to configure.
I will do that.
Because he is actively working on Argo. I just can't figure out how he has things laid out.
Okay, I'll ask it that if we can reinitiate the Thursday, the later architecture calls in.
Yep.
Yeah, you can use something like an app of apps
That I have to join.
setup.
You don't have to join because it'll be like 4 o'clock in the morning. So we will update you on once we figure out what's happening.
Okay. Like it is in the 5 in the morning, so I can join.
You don't have to. I can keep you up to date. It's okay. But if you want to, you could go for it. You're young, you can do that, but you don't have to.
Okay. I will then focus on learning Argo CD then.
Yeah, read up on it.
Especially, yeah, I can help you too, because I work with it every day.
Thank
But
you.
the setup would be the fun part.
Yeah, I think we really need to be showing how Ortelius is working using Ortelius. So I think that's a really, I mean, it makes for a great test environment too, for that matter.
Exactly. Yeah. And you, Arvin, you must look at the app of apps
On
setup.
that front, this Sasha, do you have like demo of this test environment that you're creating? Have you demoed that?
Yeah, I do. It's running on my machine right now. I showed Steve last night.
Yeah, we have a couple little things we have to figure out with the database connection, but we're getting close.
Okay.
I tested now the DB loader. I tested from the DB loader to the Postgres box with Netcat, and the port is definitely open. So maybe it's off or something.
It could be the name resolution that we need to look at.
Okay, but it's close. I mean, all the pods are running. Yeah. And
All right,
Steve,
anybody
help
else
me
have
with the
anything?
override, yeah. No, that's good.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers.
Thanks, everyone.
Right, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Everyone, bye.